Brace yourselves as we plunge into the abyss of 5 bone-chilling tales of backcountry peril. When fierce nature collides with man's temptations into her savage domain, survival falls to the brave, cunning, and lucky. Frozen Odyssey. Squinting into the whiteout, John gripped the handles tight, struggling to quell panic. He had ventured too deep into the backcountry seeking adventure. Now, utterly lost as temperatures rapidly plunged with nightfall, it was a fight for survival. He had told the others he'd return in an hour, but no one would miss him before dark or mount a search until morning. Civilization felt worlds away. He had to keep a clear head with options vanishing. Vision obscured beyond a few feet. He cut the engine to conserve precious fuel. The muffling stillness felt eerie, punctuated only by his heartbeat whooshing in his ears. Though equipped for an emergency, he lacked the gear to withstand an overnight blizzard. Each passing minute, the icy darkness and isolation chipped away dwindling hope. Weighing no good choices, he set out on foot with minimal supplies, struggling through punishing drifts. Repeatedly he nearly quit, only to force mechanical steps fueled by pain and desperation. His mind tricked him with glimpses of familiar terrain, urging him to keep staggering toward some faint chance of salvation. The repetitive agony blurred into endless frigid torment. But giving up ensured certain frozen death. Just a little farther, he urged his failing body. Surely help lay ahead. Finally, John collapsed defeated upon a frozen lake, unable to take another step. Resigning to his end, he grew distant from the pain. Then the distant whir of engines jarred him alert. Squinting against the headlights, he fumbled for his whistle. Snowmobiles converged, search party. Too exhausted for words, tears seared John's frozen cheeks with overwhelmed relief as they loaded his rigid body into a stretcher. Though nearly surrendered to the elements, he had endured on sheer grit just long enough. Now, safely in their care, he let the darkness take him, eager to awake warm and revived for another chance to ride thanks to winter's guardian angels. Whiteout sacrifice. The Wilsons huddled in their stalled sedan, swallowed overnight by a relentless South Dakota storm. They had been so close to arrival when disaster struck, now helplessly trapped on a remote road. As temperatures rapidly plunged in whiteout conditions, the stranded family took frantic stock. They lacked food, water, adequate clothing, or any way to call for help. Fuel would last hours more at best for precious heat, yet posed its own poisoning risk in the enclosed space. No one even knew their precise location to search before it was too late. The parents faced excruciating decisions to save their young children above all odds. The kids hunched on the floorboards in thin sweatshirts, their panicked breath visible as the car rattled under battering winds. Attempts at distraction failed to mute the whimpers. Finally, acknowledging rescue unlikely before nightfall, the grim adults agreed the only slim hope was leaving the children protected in the idling car to seek help on foot, once light fully faded. A gut-wrenching choice, but certain death awaited all otherwise. They offered vague reassurances, then tucked the kids in with last hugs and provisions against the dropping temperatures. With each agonizing step into the breath-stealing abyss, they pushed on solely for the innocent lives counting on them back in that makeshift haven now growing icier. Maybe someone would still miraculously appear, but forward through the piercing winds and snow was their only chance. At least in this bitter crucible, purpose concentrating their despair to determination, one foot grinding in front of the other for their children. Hours later, search teams intercepted the nearly collapsed Wilson parents and raced them to the stranded sedan, arriving to find the children miraculously still clinging to life. The family was finally rescued against all odds, entombed forever. Wyatt and Amy had been inseparable friends since freshman orientation. Both outdoorsy Colorado natives leapt at the chance for a winter break hiking challenge in the remote backcountry before graduating that spring. The Rocky Mountain high peaks called to them as an ultimate conquest. They mapped out a bold route through deep snow and planned meticulously for the demanding conditions. But disaster struck when an unexpected storm closed in fast, burying their intended campsite under impossible snow before they could reach it. Blinded as daylight rapidly faded, they dug a hasty snow cave for emergency shelter. Their first night was miserable but manageable, huddled together for warmth. Temperatures nosedived to deadly lows, however, as the small cave transformed into a frigid tomb. The blizzard continued raging outside. They radioed a mayday call on their emergency beacon but got no response, realizing no one would be risking rescue flights until it let up. By the third day, provisions disappeared along with any sign the storm might break. Weak from hunger and dangerously cold despite all their insulation and the tiny candle nub they rationed. Reality became grim. No one was coming in time. With the cave entrance now buried from drifting, they would asphyxiate if they didn't keep it cleared, but no longer had the strength to dig out. In their dire final hours, they penned frozen-fingered goodbyes to loved ones by candlelight in case their bodies were found. "No regrets," Amy wrote to her family. "The mountains called to us, and we answered fully." Resigned to their entombing fate, they finally lay embracing the inevitability together as the flickering light went out for good. Their tragic end was mercifully swift after that point, as the extreme conditions overtook them. It took 5 months for rescuers to safely access their remote location once spring thaw enabled it. Digging out the cave, they were shocked to find Wyatt and Amy's frozen remains still huddled in solemn eternally embrace. Though tragic, in those final moments at least they hadn't been alone. Marooned resolve, Frank clenched the snowplow truck's rumbling wheel with stiff, ice-encrusted gloves as frozen breath clouded the cab. Endless whiteness taunted him under the hovering exhaustion. It was hour 18 of plow duty and the unrelenting Midwest blizzard slamming their rural county. Residents were counting on this key emergency supply route staying navigable. He lived for this high-stake work, keeping people safe and connected in storms when the rest of life hunkered down helpless. But he was pushing dangerous limits of fatigue. Lack of visibility had nearly caused 2 accidents already, as his reactions slowed. Frank knew he needed to get off the road soon before he ended up in the ditch, or worse. But first he desperately needed to clear another mile to reconnect that isolated farmhouse of older residents. It was only another 20 minutes if he pushed it. Normally, backup drivers would rotate shifts so no one was ever on solo this long, but most had gotten stranded in town by the unprecedented whiteouts. Frank gritted his teeth and carried on alone into the hypnotic snow vortex. Without warning, the plow lurched to a grinding halt. The engine cut out suddenly. Electrical failure. His repeated frantic attempts to restart it did nothing. That was that. Now he was the one stranded in this endless frozen hell with no backup coming. At least he had ample fuel, clothes and supplies after long shifts, but the isolation and pounding squalls were quickly chilling. Would anyone even realize soon enough he was missing? How long could he ride it out trapped with zero visibility? Panic threatened to swell. He stamped it down with deep breaths, relying on years of emergency training to center himself. Just focused on staying warm and alert. Help would eventually come searching. To keep sharp against growing hypothermia and frostbite through the night, he performed jumping jacks and blasted heat full on during sleepy lulls, drinking the last of his coffee concentrate. Hallucinations taunted his unraveling mind, shadows lurking outside. He locked the doors just in case, unsure what was real. Time warped until finally, a rescue crew braved the still intense storm to locate him at sunrise, guided by his erratic radio calls. He stumbled out into their steadying grasp and kissed the snow in relief. The ordeal was over. He had survived the nightmare interim completely alone against perilous odds. Now for some much-needed rest. And those are just 4 bone-chilling tales of frigid backcountry survival, against near-impossible odds when sudden storms conspire cruelly against the unlucky. It's a stark reminder of both the raw, unpredictable power of nature and the incredible human will to endure almost beyond comprehension when pushed to the extremes. While we all pray to never face such harrowing crucibles personally, the lessons are clear. Proper preparation prevents much unnecessary peril in the wilderness. But even then, the whims of weather can deal shocking, unforeseen blows. Thankfully, too, in these accounts, the guardian angels watching over adventurers balanced precariously on fate's knife edge were moved to intervene when all seemed utterly surrendered to the snow. I hope you enjoyed this sobering glimpse into the frozen abyss existing on the razor-thin border between life and death. Be sure to comment on any other stirring tales of survival against the odds you've heard. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more real-life sagas. In the meantime, bundle up and tread cautiously out there in the cold.